I'm Matt Valley, and welcome to the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. You might notice a new background today if you're a regular viewer. This is my first podcast in my band rehearsal space, so check out my collection of snare drums. Quite proud of that. Anyway, I am super excited to welcome today's guest, Marc Huzansky, who's currently VP Senior Client Partner at a company called Cerner Enviza, a leader in data insights and consulting for healthcare and the life sciences. Now, you may know Cerner Enviza in the past as being owned by or part of Kantar Health. As of last year, they were purchased by Oracle. So now they're under the Oracle umbrella. And having personally worked with Oracle in the recent past, I can attest to the fact that they're a great company to work with. So good on you there, Marc. So
Thanks.
Yeah, right on. So something that a lot of researchers don't know about Marc, but a lot of guitar players do, is that beginning in 2017, he has been the co-host of a YouTube show called ToneTalk. Now, ToneTalk is a big deal. So it's got just a few more subscribers than, let's say, the Rock and Roll Research Podcast. In fact, it has over 22,000 subscribers currently on the strength of some unbelievable guests they've had as part of that program, which include Rex Brown from Pantera, Jakey Lee from Ozzy Osbourne, and Steve Lukather from Toto and Ringo's All-Star Band. Yes, that Ringo. And countless studio performances, just unbelievable list of guests, and just a crazy cool podcast. So we're going to talk about all that and more on today's show. Welcome to the podcast, Marc.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we thought we'd put you on the other side of the mic today. So
Exactly.
time to hear that's right. Time to hear your story. So as we get into that, let's start with research. So tell us how you got into research and what you're doing now.
Sure. I got into research a long time ago, well over 26 years ago. While I was finishing up school, I was working for a mall intercept field agency.
Old school.
Yeah, old school consumer research. So I worked there for a while, and then I ended up managing the place down here in South Florida. And the reason why I got into that was really because of a good close friend of mine was doing something similar, and got into consumer market research. And so he suggested that I do that while I was finishing up school. And so from there, I when I graduated, I applied to a bunch of different companies, thinking I was going to go into consumer research. Really.
Right.
And I applied to a lot of different consumer companies. And one of them happened to be Total Research.
Right.
And Total Research did a bunch of different types of, engagements with different types of clients. So, they had a pharma division or a healthcare division, but they also had automotive, and they had a whole bunch of other different types of research divisions that they had going on at the company. And I interviewed for pharma and had no idea about pharma market research.
Right.
But it was very similar, obviously, to what we were doing in consumer, just different principles but similar methodologies. So that's how I got into it. That was my first job, and I started from the ground up as a researcher, really as a field manager, and then worked my way up to being a researcher and writing reports and doing analysis. And then from there, writing tables and checking tables and making sure all the data was right. And then I got into moderation. I was doing that for a while,
Okay.
and writing qualitative discussion guides and reports. And along the way, many people along the way would say to me, you really should get into sales. You really should get into the sales side of things. And I was very, very, opposed to that, because I always felt like, oh, you're gonna have a number on your head, and you have this responsibility of having to bring in business, and it kind of scared me. So I felt very comfortable in my little research cocoon, and and what I was just felt very good about that. I was like, I'm happy with just doing the research. But eventually, I left total research, and I went into a job which was a sales job. So I went to where did I go? I went to a company called Landis,
Right. Yeah.
which and, and that company ended up getting acquired by TNS, which ended up being owned by Kantar. So eventually, Landis was like a sister company of ours, but things kind of come full circle, which is
Yeah.
why I never burn a bridge, because you never know who you're going to work with again. Um,
Absolutely.
so and yeah, like I said, I got into healthcare, and I've been doing that really ever since, and then got into sales, and have really been in a revenue role for probably the past 20 years, probably, and or give or take a few years. So yeah, and mainly my role now is I work for Cerner Enviza, soon to be an Oracle company. We're going to probably change our name at some point soon, and uh, I work in the BD in a BD position where I am building relationships with new clients, new biotech companies who don't have relationships with Cerner and Visa, or Oracle, and alerting them about our services and the things that we can do for them, and trying to find a good fit for the type of work that we do, whether it be primary market research, or it might be epidemiology, custom or syndicated. It might be some of our syndicated offers that we have. So, my experience and the type of work that I've been doing for the past, I'd probably say 10 or so years, has really branched beyond primary market research.
Right.
And I really am involved in a whole bunch of things, including electronic health records, claims data, and then some of the newer things that we'll be doing with Oracle and Cerner, because Cerner was an EHR company, and now that's owned by Oracle, and they're building the cloud for their electronic health record information.
Right.
So there's a whole host of exciting information, exciting things that are coming down the line for healthcare and the future of healthcare.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yes, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. It's great to hear, and it makes sense that in this space that requires a high level of expertise, that you're in a business development role, but you really started as a researcher, and so you've got that in your background, which I think is a real asset. Cool.
It's
Um,
important. I mean, I do I do think that's important.
yeah.
Uh, in order to be able to speak to clients, I think knowledgeably, and be able to tell them, from a consultant type of perspective,
Yeah.
not that you're not just selling a product. You're really trying to understand their business challenges and match what we can do for them based
Yeah.
on that. And that takes an understanding of, not only being a researcher, but also trying to understand the business issues that they face, and trying
Definitely.
to trying to answer them with different methodologies, or different ways of finding solutions.
Cool. Cool. All right,
Yeah,
dude. Tone Talk. 22 plus thousand subscribers. Several of my
I know.
friends watch your videos. So impressive. Tell us about how this came about, and give us the spiel about Tone Talk.
Sure. Well, I first of all, I appreciate the intro before. Yeah, I mean, I really I'm quite fortunate, lucky, however you want to say it. I became friendly with this guy, Dave Friedman. Dave Friedman is he has his own line of amplifiers,
Yeah,
guitars, pedals, and it's called Friedman Amplification. I've known about Dave. I've been a big Van Halen fan for many, many years.
yeah,
Um, I was on a show briefly for a while as a co-host, and met Dave Friedman through that. And then I left that because I really honestly, I'm a 54-year-old guy. I'm a researcher. I'm in the healthcare consulting space. Like I never thought I'd be on YouTube. I truthfully, I mean, I played in bands for many years. And that's what I did even before I got into being a researcher. I played drums and I was in a band in New York City, and then I picked up guitar, and it's amazing how picking up an instrument has taken me down such an incredible path.
Yeah.
A path that I never thought it would take me down, which was meeting not only Dave Friedman, because as a Van Halen fan, he was like the guy. People would be like, "Oh, you need to get the Friedman Marcia amp was the amp to get if you want like the really greatest Van Halen tones, right?" So
Yeah.
about that a decade before I even met Dave. So the opportunity to meet Dave was great. And then we were talking one day and he said to me, which was, it was really just about like, I really wanted to still remain friends with him after I was left this other gig. And
Yeah.
I said to him, let's just be friends, and he was asking me the story on things. And he said, let's just do our own show, which surprised the hell out of me because I never thought that he would want to do a show on YouTube either. He's a busy guy. He's got his own brand, his own company going on. So, but it made a lot of sense because there's a lot of I'd say I wouldn't say builders or companies, but different manufacturers have their own YouTube presence.
Yeah.
So I get it. He's kind of a well-known famous guy in the guitar and in the music industry. So
Yep.
it made sense for him to connect with people that know of him. So, I certainly can't say that the following is because of Marc Huzansky. um, the following comes because Dave Friedman and his brand, and certainly, all the people that he knows. But, Dave said to me, "Is like, look, I don't know anything about running the show. I don't know anything about doing this, but if you can run it and do it, I'll show up and let's just make it happen." I was like, "That's awesome." So, we're 50-50 partners on the show, which is
Yeah.
great. And it's built up to over 22,000 people, which is amazing. And some days I'm like, that's incredible. And other days I'm like, wow, we should have way more.
Yeah.
but I'm really thankful of the audience and the community that we've developed with people. And for the most part, I'd say like 99.9% of the feedback and people that I meet are really, really cool.
Yeah.
There's always that 0.1% that are just, yeah, you have to block them out. The trolls as they call them, they're around, but it's a really, really small percentage of people, at least that I found. Everybody's really super cool in the music industry. And like you said, I mean, we've had on some amazing guests, some that stick out, Steve Vai, Steve Lukather.
Yeah.
I was just looking at another Steve Ferris, who was from Mr. Mister.
Yeah.
It was great. That was a great interview, and then we had Joe Satriani and so many other people, George Lynch from Dawkins.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just great. I mean, just so many people. The guy who's playing now with Motley Crue, John Five, because Mick Mars left or supposedly was fired.
Yeah.
So John Five, he was on my show, and yeah, it's been great. I mean, we've had a really great list of guests. It's hard to top some of the guests that we've had. You
Yeah. I mean,
know,
you can't.
no,
You
it's
can't.
like it's almost impossible. It really is. It's almost impossible. I mean, the only one that I really truly wanted to have, and sadly he passed away, was Eddie Van Halen,
Right.
and that was true. That was in the works. I mean, that was a possibility up until he was sick, and then it just wasn't a possibility anymore. Um, we're still hoping to get his son on, to get Wolfgang on.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be
Dave,
awesome.
yeah, Dave works with Wolfgang, so if we can get him on, that'll be big. Um, and I've got a few other big music titans up my sleeve that I'm trying to get on the show. Like, as for example, Floyd Rose,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
who developed the Floyd Rose tremolo, and then
Yeah.
also Hartley Peavy from
Nice.
Peavy,
Oh, yes, of course.
musical.
Got some PV in here.
So yeah, yeah, there you go, right behind you. Yeah, Hartley just wrote me today, as a matter of fact. I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to get him. the show because he doesn't have a camera, but we'll figure something out. So yeah, it's a great show. I really do. I love it. I really do love doing it. But it's a fine balance of doing it and then having a career and a serious career. It's like we have a serious job, right?
Yeah.
And things that that we do for clients. So trying to keep it, because what I do on and what you're doing here is fun, right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. Yeah, that's why I'm
I
here.
try to Right, and I try to have fun, and which is great. And I was so glad that not only that you asked me to be on, but just that somebody else was doing something cool on YouTube about rock and roll and and was a researcher. I was like, that's fantastic. I have to meet this guy. So, um,
Cool.
yeah, yeah, well,
Cool.
yeah. So
Well,
that's the story. Yeah.
yeah, I gotta tell you, my son, my 12-year-old son, he has a Jackson V with a Floyd Rose. So if you get him on, if you could have him do a quick tutorial for adjusting a Floyd Rose for dummies, i.e., me, I would definitely tune into that. So
I will, not only, can you imagine how many questions he's gotten on that over the years? But I'll be glad to help you if you need any help on that. I'm kind of an expert on the Floyd Rose. I've got a ton of guitars with the Floyd. That's really kind of ultimately the what led me down this path of having the show, was because I was having a problem with my Floyd Rose and
too funny.
I couldn't get it in, I couldn't get it into tune. So I contacted this guy who had his own show on YouTube about Van Halen,
Yeah.
and then we became. He had me on his show, and then we ended up having Dave Friedman on, and that's. If it wasn't for my Floyd Rose, I wouldn't be, and having problems with it being in tune, I might not be here today. So
Yeah, too funny. That's awesome. Cool. So
yeah.
so let me ask you this. So you're doing this in your spare time. You've been a career researcher. Is there any overlap between these two in terms of skill sets or anything like that? Or are these just two totally separate spheres for you?
It's a great question, Matt. Um, I I think there is an overlap. There's definitely an overlap. First of all, I run the show, so I'm the moderator,
Right.
right? So interview based show, and the majority of the interviewing being done is by me.
Right.
So I'm really the moderator. Dave is the knowledge base when it comes to the amplifier circuits and all the details when it comes to all of that. I mean, I know I can talk gear and guitar stuff for hours, but when it comes to the real nitty gritty about
Yeah.
how to set things up and building your own rig and all those things, Dave is the guy. But I run the show, so when it comes to interviewing people, it's really natural for me because I've been doing it for years
Yeah.
and had done it with doctors or done it with patients. So really that for that reason alone, there's that overlap. Um, and I think some of the overlap of just doing the research on the actual person themselves and setting up. When I first got started, it's funny because Dave's definitely more of a fly by your seat of the pants kind of person, and I'm a very type A, like everything has to be written. So I would write like a discussion guide at the beginning of each
Yeah.
of a couple of our first shows. Like, okay, these are the questions that we're going to ask. And Dave was like, well, Hank, we don't need that. Let's just wherever the discussion takes us, let's go down that path. And I'm easygoing. I'm like, sure, that sounds great. But I still, in the back of my mind, I do research on people. I still have
Yeah.
questions written down, things. So in case there's any dead air or there's any space, or say someone doesn't have a question or something in the chat, I've got a question ready to go, and that I can ask or something along to keep the conversation moving.
Right.
So yeah, there's definitely overlap. There's definitely overlap.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So let's go back to research for a second. I'm curious because I don't, most of my career doesn't really touch healthcare or the life sciences, that sort of thing. But you've been immersed in that space. So as you think about the future of research, kind of from your vantage point, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that are moving really fast right now. I mean, we have artificial intelligence that everybody's just
Yeah.
jumping on the bandwagon and thinking about the different platforms of artificial intelligence, chat GPT, and all these different things of how that's going to change analysis, or that's going to change the way that we do research. There's also um, large data sets like electronic health records, claims data, and merging that data with other big data sets,
Yeah.
and really creating a large perspective on the consumer, and being able to look at them not only as a patient but also as a consumer, and you can really understand their attitudes and a whole host of things about somebody beyond just their healthcare information.
Yeah.
um, so I think we're heading down that path, of really understanding maybe more holistically a person of and what their needs are. And primary research, some people think that primary research is going to go away, but I'm still a firm believer that we're gonna have primary research regardless, and
Yeah.
uh, of some of these things, and we're gonna have to talk to people and understand qualitatively how people are thinking and feeling,
Right.
and quantitatively we're still going to need to go out to a large pool of people and understand how what they're thinking and feeling about things. And so but yeah, I mean, and then the cloud is another area where, and what Oracle is thinking about doing by improving healthcare, which is not necessarily research based, but really, I mean, it is research based, and it's taking all of this data and making sense of it, and possibly identifying areas where we can diagnose people earlier or uncover diseases earlier based on certain patterns in the data that we see on a much larger data set, right,
Right.
of electronic health records. So I think there's really exciting things and that's where the artificial intelligence might come to play with all this huge data and being able to understand and put us humans in the right direction of understanding like ways to improve healthcare and improve in diagnosis time for rare diseases or those types of things. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't-
Yeah. And you mentioned the death of primary research, or the so-called or the imminent death of primary research. It continually it's continually the case that you've got a very specific question, right? And big data can often get you close, can sort of get you a ballpark. But if you have to know something very specific, primary
Mhm.
research is the best way to get that, which is, no, this is exactly what I need to know. I can talk to
Mhm.
people and I can frame it in a way where I get exactly the answer that I need to this question. So I don't see big data completely taking that over anytime soon.
No, I mean, I think the way we can think about it is just the way it's always been. I mean, when IMS data came out and all these different other data sets, it's just a good way to triangulate the
Right.
world
Yep.
that you're trying to see, right? And
Yep.
if you have a bunch of different data points, that's going to give you a better picture. So why just look at one? Or just, so yeah, we've got great data out there now that we can look at,
Yeah.
but just one piece and you're going to have a whole of the whys behind it, or some other
Exactly. Yep.
piece that you need to quantify or whatever it is. So yeah, I'd say look at the whole thing holistically. So
Well said. Excellent. So you're a
yeah,
content creator by night, Marc, or by weekend, or however that works.
yeah.
Um, I'm interested to know, when you have time to consume media yourself, what do you turn to either for insight, inspiration, or enjoyment? Big, broad question.
Yeah, I'm a big YouTube watcher.
Yeah.
I do watch YouTube a lot. I watch a lot of content from my peers on there. It's interesting that I've gotten to know a lot of other YouTubers. So, and back when the NAM show was really a thing, which is actually it's coming up, I think this coming weekend. Which is for people who don't know, the NAM show is the National Association of Music Merchants,
Right.
uh, which is really where all the musical gear companies go to sell their and show off their new gear. I went there for the past like several years before COVID, and it was so great to go. And I got to meet other YouTubers and other people in the community. Um, but since COVID, it's been kind of a shell of itself and not really great to go. And none of the big companies are really there anymore. So it's really, like I said, it's a shell of itself. So I haven't been, but I'd say I've gotten a chance to really meet some really great people. So from the YouTube community, so I watch a lot of that. Uh, specifically, I watch guys like Pete Thorne and like different gear reviews and things like that.
Right.
You probably watch drum based shows or
I
drum
watch a lot of
drum
Rick
based.
Beato. I watch a lot of Rick Beato actually.
Okay, Rick Beato. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm in the middle of a Rick Beato video right now where he interviewed the bass player from Stone Temple Pilots because I
yeah.
interviewed Dean DeLeo. So
Yeah.
he interviewed his brother, Robert DeLeo. So
Nice.
so I was like, all right, I have to watch the Robert DeLeo interview because I wanted to get Robert on also, but he didn't come on. So he went on Rick Beato. So uh, I guess
Excellent.
if he had to pick another show that had a bigger audience, Rick is probably the better way to go.
Oh, that's
Rick is,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
he has like two
Go ahead.
million subscribers. So.
Yeah, yeah, and he's just incredible. So I am curious, if you think about all the shows that you've done, is there one that stands out as maybe the most memorable or the best in your mind?
Uh, well, the most memorable and the best are two separate ones. So
Totally.
the most memorable one is the Jakey Lee one because you see, I'm in the driving seat, so I have to stay sober. I have to stay lucid, and
Yeah.
but those two guys, Dave and Jakey Lee, were in the same hotel room together, and they got really loaded. So it was very funny. By the end of the show, it's hysterical. It's just the so that was a train wreck. But some of the better ones, I'd probably say my favorite one was Dean DeLeo. Between Dean DeLeo and Dave Navarro, because
Dave
those two guys,
Barrow. Wow, cool.
yeah, those two guys. You see, even though I'm an '80s guy, I grew up in the '80s, and love '80s bands. But Jane's Addiction and Stone Temple Pilots are probably two of my favorite bands from the '90s.
Yeah.
Like I put them up there with some of the best bands that were ever in existence, Zeppelin and Pink Floyd or wherever. I mean, Jane's Addiction and Stone Temple Pilots are up there in the pantheon of rock greats.
Yeah.
And to have both of those guys on my show, to me, was just truly like I was starstruck.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. So yeah, I'd say those two episodes were probably my favorites.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Steve Lukather. I can't I can't leave Steve Lukather out because he's a nut and just so fun.
Yeah, I have to admit I'm jealous because I have on a few occasions tried to recruit Milo Aukerman, the front man for the Descendants, one of my all-time favorite
Oh,
punk bands, who is also a scientist for DuPont for many, many years, PhD scientist. And
wow.
he has rebuffed me thus far. So maybe someday we'll see.
Did he say no or he just hasn't
No,
answered
just
you?
no response, no response, not yet. Not
Well, that's
yet.
better than
That's
that's
better
better
than
than
a
a
no.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I you remind me, Dave may know him or may know the band. So
Yeah, yeah,
remind,
okay.
remind me.
Now we're
So we'll
talking.
yeah, we'll see if Dave can maybe make a connection, Uh yeah, so that's fun. It's great that that you're doing this. I mean, it's great to make the connection of other people in the industry who are tied to the rock business in some way, as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I have discovered some amazing bands through this process, and just had tons of great experiences. Even stories, well beyond music. I've had some guests that have just done some amazing things and just some really interesting things. So really cool. So you've dropped a couple of hints, Marc. You've dropped a couple hints, but I'm fascinated to know this. So I really want to know what it is that really moves you musically. So let's say you're stranded on a desert island, right? You have three records, only three, your last three records of your life, and they have to keep you company for the rest of your days. What are those three records?
Okay. So I'd go with Van Halen 1984.
Yes, yes. Awesome.
I would
Let's
go,
go jump. All right.
yes, but I mean, the whole album is just start to finish. I can pick any of the first six Van Halen albums, but I chose that one because I don't know. I think that's probably the best production wise.
Yeah.
And I would go with Zeppelin Physical Graffiti because it's a double album.
Yeah, yeah. Smart. Good strategy.
And probably the one that just pops in my head right now is I'd probably go with Rush Permanent Waves.
Yes. A seminal record in my own upbringing for sure. Yes.
Yeah, I'd love that album. I couldn't imagine being if I'm on a desert island, I have to have some Rush.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I'd say that this is definitely like of the congruence that I have with the answers to this question, and now I've had 90 or so. This one is really close. It's really close to me. So it's close as any that we've had so far, perhaps. So great stuff.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, yeah. The Physical Graffiti. I just always go back to that album. I can listen to that. Just it's got everything you want from Zeppelin. It's
Yeah.
got the quiet stuff, got the hard stuff. It's got the screaming stuff. It's got the ballad. It's got it all.
Yeah, awesome, awesome, great choices and a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad we had a chance to
Yes.
meet. And if this podcast was the tool to do that, I'm grateful for that. So I am
Yeah.
sure we're going to be talking soon because we've got to talk about that Floyd Rose tremolo. I might need your help. So
I absolutely. I am here to help. And if I can't help, I'll get you Floyd's number. You can bug
that's
him.
right. That's right. You're the guy to know. You're the guy to know. Excellent. Well, I'll keep listening to Tone Talk. And in the meantime, let's talk soon, Marc. Let's rock and roll.
Got it, buddy.